Hey kids, Mrs. Maloney here. Together we are going to work on plastering our armatures. Our job today is to cover the entire figure or human sculpture we've created with this plaster. This is what each piece looks like. When you dunk it in warm water like this, it becomes soft and can be wrapped around stuff. And then later when it dries, it hardens. And it leaves a really nice white surface that you can paint. So, to use the plaster, dunk it in warm water and rub with your fingers to get rid of the holes in it. Then, when it's nice and soft, start wrapping your figure. Just start in one area, like I chose to start with this leg, and work your way up. Here we go with number 2 to finish covering that leg. The smoother that you make the plaster with your hands when it's wet, the easier it's going to be to paint later on. After this, I'm going to use some movie magic to speed things up a little bit. And at the end of it, I'm going to have this whole ballerina covered with one layer of plaster. Excelente. Thank you, Movie Magic. My figure is totally covered in one layer of plaster. Notice I don't have any details. I have not added any hair. I have not added a tutu for her yet. I'm just working on covering her one time and then moving on to the floor or the ground. So I'm noticing she's a little bit wiggly. I don't want her to fall off. So I'm going to add a piece of plaster around her foot to connect it to the floor better. And then I'm going to take more plaster and cover the entire piece of cardboard. You want to cover the entire floor or the entire base because, like I said before, plaster dries hard and it's also going to be white and smooth, so that you can paint the floor or the ground however you want it. So this part is very important. Take a break from the figure and cover the whole ground. I think we need to speed things up a bit. What do you think? That actually took a really long time, you guys. But luckily, we didn't have to sit through that whole thing. Mrs. Toad finally figured out how to speed things up on the videos. Okay, the floor is all covered. She's covered once, but I think I can do better. I'm going to take some more plaster, and I'm going to try to make her body look more realistic. I noticed that her chest is kind of like caved in, like that doesn't look very normal to me, so I'm going to fill that in. And I'm also going to make her head a little bit bigger by adding some more plaster around it. Probably 2 more layers of plaster will make the head bigger and more realistic looking. See what I mean about the chest area? It's kind of sunken in. I'm going to add more plaster there. Let's speed things up. I'm going to add some more fixes just by adding more plaster. Alrighty, I am satisfied. I think she looks really good. Now I'm gonna start adding decorations with plaster. I'm gonna create a tutu around her waist, some stage lights because she's supposed to be performing on a stage, and a little bouquet of flowers on the ground, like someone threw it on the stage from the audience because she's doing such a good job. All right, so all of this stuff can be made out of plaster. Remember, you need to dunk your plaster in warm water, rub the pieces so that the holes disappear, and then you can kind of form it into whatever shape you need it to be. It's almost like clay when plastic gets wet. So I'm going to create a tutu like this, and I'm going to create some stage lights as well. Let's take a closer look at this tutu and how it's coming along. It's looking great. It's a little bit small. I'd like it to be bigger, so I am going to give it just a second to dry out a bit so that I can add some more plaster around it and make it bigger. And one thing to remember is that you can also paint on the clothes. Only parts that are sticking out of clothing, like a tutu for example, needs to be made with plaster. The rest of her leotard, the top part of her ballet costume, is going to be painted on, if that makes sense. So right here I'm adding some more size to her skirts, her tutu, and in between I created the lights and bouquet to give the tutu some time to dry, and she is ready to go. I also added a little crown on top of her head just for fun. I cannot wait to paint this little lady, but for now she needs to go on the table tray, the black tray. The plaster water cannot be dumped down the drain. It needs to stay in the bowl, and the bowl needs to go on your tray. And lastly, all the plaster pieces need to be put back into the bag, and the bag needs to go on the tray. Use a very wet rag to wipe the table and your hands. You did a fantastic job. I cannot wait till these dry and we can start painting them.